All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Okay. So, hi, everyone. For those of you who are watching for the first time, my name is Wayne Aker. I am a Drupal developer and I teach Drupal classes at DrupalTutor.com. And this is a free live stream where I will be, over the course of many weeks, building a new version of DrupalTutor.com live on the stream. So last week, and I should say just a general disclaimer, this live stream is just me sort of figuring out how to do this, build this in real time. So it's not quite as polished as the courses. So again, if you take the courses, you can expect a much more polished experience than what you're going to get on the live stream. But hopefully the real world example that you're going to see here that's quite complex is educational as well. So, all right, last week we went through the content types and we set all those up. So I think we have all the content types, we have all the media types, we have all the taxonomy types. There's still some custom content types that we have out there that we're not going to deal with right now. But yeah. So this week, I'm going to write some migrations to get some data into those content types. Now, it might seem kind of early in the game to start writing migrations of our data, but one of the things I want to do relatively soon is create a custom theme for this site, because that's something that we'll need to get that in place so that we can, as we build out new features, we have something to work in to clean things up and make sure it looks nice in addition to the other functionality that we'll be building. And in order to do the theme, we're going to need some content in here to theme. And I could put a bunch of lorem ipsum sort of fake content, but sometimes that's not the best. I mean, you can use a module like devel generate to generate a bunch of content. But that's not necessarily the same as real content. And so we're gonna have to write the migrations anyway. And with the Drupal core migration system, it's really nice because you can write these migrations just mainly as YAML code, just a YAML configuration file, and then you can run them, you can roll them back, you can run them again. So it makes it really easy to just go ahead and do it now, and we can get some real data in there. And then if we have to throw away the database, we can just run it again. It won't waste a lot of time versus that lorem ipsum. If we manually make all that and then we have to throw away our database because we screw something up, we have to put all that back in there again. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing at least some of the migrations. We're not going to be able to do everything because we don't even have all the custom content types yet, or custom entity types yet. But we're going to do as much as we can do. There's going to be two different ways that two different sources for our migrations. We're going to do some from CSV files because there's some stuff that we don't. I kind of want to change it, or there's certain things where there's only two values that we really need in the new system, like the taxonomy term for the type of meeting a certain webinar is, that has two values, or it actually probably only needs one in the beginning. So I'm not going to migrate that from the database. I'm just going to load it with some content. Also, some of the pages, I'm not going to migrate the current pages over because we're going to have new paragraph types. There's only about 12 or 15 of them anyway. So I'm just going to bring them out. I'll just do a migration. I'll just do a migration from CSV files, and I'll manually put the data in those files. So we'll do some from CSV files. And then I also want to try to migrate from the old database for things like users, all those blog posts we talked about. There are some old blog posts. They're not really visible on the site, but they're there. And like all the old courses, all the old webinars, the videos, the lessons. I want to be able to pull that straight from the database. Now that's something I haven't exactly done before because it's a little tricky because it's already a Drupal 9 database. And I want to pull that data into another Drupal 9 database, but I want to transform it in some cases because it's not necessarily, it's moving from like a custom entity type over to a content type. That's something I haven't done before. So I'll warn you ahead of time. I'm going to be trying to figure out how to do that. It appears, I did a little bit of Googling here for the last 20 minutes before we started, that it requires a custom or a module, an add-on module that's not in core. So we'll try it and see how it goes. Let's see. Okay, a couple things before we dive in. I should say that if I do have information about this live stream at DrupalTutor.com/live. So if this is the first time you watch it, or if you're watching it on YouTube and you're not subscribed, if you go here, you can put in your email address and I'll send you an email every week telling you what we're going to work on for that week. So you can decide if that's interesting to you and you want to tune in live. One of the big benefits of tuning in live is that you can ask questions. So, they are all posted as recordings as well if you want to watch them that way. And finally, one other thing, there was a request on the last live stream to, and I forgot to do one thing. Hold on here. Sorry, I got to set up, the live stream doesn't like it when I move between spaces with the sliding sort of effect. It like lags and does weird stuff. So I think I got to turn that off. Okay, so we have this TSD file. Sorry, gotta also put on Do Not Disturb. Okay, so we have this TSD file right here. And some people asked on the last live stream if we could, if they could have this template. So I did create a template. I put it on Google Docs. If you go to this bit.ly link, then it's not my one here. I cleaned out this, but I left it as a template that you can copy and put into your, and then you can put in, you create a tab for each of your content types. Okay, so, all right. So with that, I think we can get started. Okay, so first I see that Joseph asked a question. Were there any export, transform, load ETL libraries? I don't know exactly what that means. I've heard many of those terms before, but I don't know exactly what that means. If you're talking about interfacing it with an external library, or you can tap into the migration process. We may have to do that at some point. Write our own process plugin to modify some data, munge it around a bit so that before we put it into the new system. But I don't know if you're talking about some specific external system that it would tap into. So feel free to add a follow-up if you'd like to make it more clear. Okay, but why don't we start with something I know how to do? Let's start with something CSV file. And let's see. So we can do this for a taxonomy term. Okay, so let's do something like, okay, we can start with something easy like project type, because project type is a taxonomy term that is for for the knowledge base of projects, and the types in the current site. There's only a few of them. Let me try to find them. Okay, so my project, I'm pulling up another window over here because I've got the sort of configuration for the current DrupalTutor site over there. It looks like I have module, theme, distribution, development tools, JavaScript library, and other. Now, I am trying to move this a little bit out of the, so that's not Drupal specific anymore. So we'll figure out, we'll reorganize that a little bit, but we should have at least those kind of things in there. So yeah, let's get started. So we're going to use a CSV file. We're going to need some modules first of all. So let me pull open. I'll work in the code editor again today. Let me see. I can't remember which. Let me just double check which parts of Migrate are in here. Yeah, we'll turn on Migrate. We'll turn on Migrate Drupal. I'm not sure that's enough to do the other part that we want later, but we actually don't need that for CSV files, but I'll go ahead and turn it on since I'm here. All right. There are some additional modules that are useful for doing migrations. There is, let's see, Drupal Migrate Plus. There's Drupal Migrate Tools. I can't remember if you need both of these. But we'll go ahead and take them for now, because I can't remember which exact features are in which one. And then, because we're doing CSV files, you can't do CSV files with Drupal core alone. You need Drupal Migrate CSV source, I think is what it's called. Nope. Maybe it's source CSV. Yeah, it's migrate source CSV. Okay, so let's enable those. Migrate Plus, source CSV, and tools. All right. And now we need to, well, we need to do two things. We need to write we need to have a CSV file, and then we need to write the migration configuration. So I'm going to put my CSV files in this project, but I don't want them in the web directory because maybe some of this content won't be, it's not intended to be viewed from the public. So I'm going to create a new folder at the root level called content. And I'm going to put any CSV files or other files that I have to, that are part of that migration of content in here. So I'll create a new file. And I'll call it, what was the name of this? This is project type, right? So I'll call it taxonomy, project type, .yml. Oh, sorry, not YML. That's CSV. Okay, so this is a CSV file. Let's start with something. We'll start with it really basic. So we're going to need, for a taxonomy term, we'll need at least 2 things, but we'll eventually need 3 things. So the 2 things we'll need is we'll need some unique ID identifier, and then we will need the taxonomy term itself. So, and the CSV file should have a header row. So I'm just going to write it here. I'll have unique ID. It doesn't have to be called that. It doesn't have to be like actually unique ID. It could be anything. It could just be ID or whatever. Although don't use ID, because if you ever open it in Excel, it screws up. If ID is like the first part of the CSV file, I don't know why Excel doesn't like that, but it always causes problems. So make it something else _ID and it's fine. So we need at least 2. We need a unique ID and the name, the term name. So let's just do one of them. So I'll say the unique ID is Drupal. The ID can be anything. It can be a number, it can be a string, doesn't matter. And then in this case, the term name will also be Drupal. My idea is that we're going to have Drupal, and then under that we'll have like module theme distribution, and then something like a JavaScript will be back at like the top level. All right, so let's start with that. Let's just try to see if we can get migrate to pull in one term. Okay, so now we need to define our migrations. That has to be done in a module, so we're going to have to create a custom module. So I'll create a custom module here, or custom module folder, and then in here I'll call this DT content, because this is where I'll put all the content migrations. And I'll need an info file, and I might need to just crib from another one because I make sure I get all the things I need here. Okay, so we need a name. We don't actually need a description, so I'll just leave it out. I will group my modules together under DrupalTutor, type module. Yeah, I think this will be compatible with all of those versions, so we can leave that. The dependencies, this will require Drupal migrate and migrate source CSV. All right, so let's just see if my module shows up. Okay, here it is. Does it have the right? Yeah, I did that right as far as the dependencies. Okay, so that's there. And let me just double check. We have to have a subfolder here. I think it's migration. Let me just look at another project I have over here. Migrations. Okay, so we need a subfolder under the here called migrations. And then in here, we define our migrations as YAML files. So again, I'm just gonna I got another one up over here that I can look at so I don't forget anything. So here, let's make a new file. I'll call it, we don't have to preface it with our module name. It needs to be a unique name for all migrations. So I usually use the module name as the first part, though that's not a requirement. Sorry, this is DT content. And then this is going to be DT content dot taxonomy project type dot YML. All All right. And then in here, we need an ID. You can't use I mean, I would prefer if I could just have it exactly the same as its file name, but you can't use those dots. So I'll just do it without the dots. I'll do it at underscores. Okay, so again, this has to be globally unique ID. So I'll preface it with DT content. I mean, not that I would expect a migration to be coming from anywhere else, but we need a label. So this is just a human readable label for this. So this is project type taxonomy terms. We can do dependencies, but we don't need any of those. We can have tags. So tags are useful if you want to be able to run multiple migrations at once. So I like to have one that's something like launch content or something, you could call it whatever you want, but basically this is content I expect to load at launch. It could have multiple tags. So you could have testing content and launch content, and this taxonomy term might be for both of them because it's coming from a CSV file. So it might make sense to load it for both. So you can have as many tags as you want, and then you can say run all the migrations with launch content instead of running each one manually. So I'll give it that tag, and then we're ready to define our migration plugin. So there's 3 things that we have to do. We have to define the source, the process, and the destination. Okay, so this is where's the data coming from? What should we do with it? How do we map it up together? And then where does it get stored to? So, and each of these things, like the sources, the destinations, the processes, are all defined by plugins. And so you'll see this word plugin a lot in here. So we have to tell it first, what's the source plugin? In this case, it's CSV because we're going to read this from a CSV file. Now, the settings that come with this source plugin will depend on the source plugin itself. So a CSV file needs a file name, but obviously reading from a database, another Drupal database, would not require that. So in this case, it's path. And the path is dot backslash content / content. Taxonomy, project type CSV. And then we need to give it the IDs. So this is saying which column in the CSV file should be treated as a unique ID. In this case, we called that unique ID. And it can be, so I think it could be a complex key because I see here that it's an array. I've never actually used a complex key, but now that I see it's an array, I think it could be like if you have some 2-column combination that's unique, I think you could put them in here and that could be considered the ID. And that is enough to get the data out. So that's enough for the source plugin. So now in the process plugin, we have to map what's in the CSV file to what is in Drupal. So for a taxonomy term, let me just double check. Yeah. So name is actually the machine name in Drupal for this, for the title or of the taxonomy term. So that's the machine name in Drupal. Now it also happens to be the column name. They don't have to match because this is what's going to match them up. So in this case, I'm going to say name maps to name in the CSV file, but this is the one in Drupal. This is the one in the CSV file. And in this case, we don't have to We don't need to do any other kind of processing because it's, you know, the name is already a string. It's going to a string. We don't need to manipulate it in any way. So it's a pretty straightforward. I could just copy this and make one. Okay, so that's all we need for process, at least at the moment. We'll come back and we'll do the parent thing so that we can nest them underneath each other. But for right now, let's go with that. So then the destination plugin needs to be, we want this to become an entity of taxonomy term, entity of type taxonomy term. And here we can also put in a default bundle, which is, which is the vocabulary name, which is project type. Now, if we had a file that had like terms that were going to multiple vocabularies, we could have potentially mapped the vocabulary up here in the process, and we could have had the bundle being mapped by some column of the CSV file, but probably you're going to be getting these exported separately. I mean, usually that's how it would be set up because you're not going to have all the categories mixed together. But maybe if you have like all the categories mixed together now, but you want to split them in your new site, if you have some column you can use as a discriminator, you potentially could do that in the process. It doesn't have to be done here in the default part. All right, so that is actually, and that should be enough. And so let's try it. First of all, let me just let me look at that taxonomy term, because I don't know, we might have put something in there. Oh yeah, we put Drupal model. So I'm going to delete what we put in there before. So there are no taxonomy terms in here. And I will clear all my caches. And then I need to run the migration. So let me just show you first. There are several drush commands, and the drush commands I think don't come with Drupal core. That's what you need. And this is where I can't remember which one it is. It's migrate tools or migrate plus. It may be that some of these do one and some of them do the other. That's what I don't remember, is which ones provide these. I think it's migrate tools, but if you don't see it, then get migrate plus. But so you've got migrate import. This is what's going to run the migration. Migrate rollback. So if you want to delete it and do it again, which we're going to have to do several times here because we're going to be making changes. You can also check the reset the status. So if you have a migration that crashes because there's some misconfiguration or some error during migration, it will, you can't just run it again. And sometimes you can't even roll it back because the status is wrong. So you can check the status and you can reset the status, which would then allow you to roll it back and do it again. And yeah, I'm not sure about stop. I don't know. I've never needed to use stop. So messages is useful for debugging. If you have some error and then you want to see, I think messages will show you if the last thing had an issue, you can print the messages with the messages command there. Okay, so let's run the migration. So we can drush MIM, and then we need the ID. So not the file name, but whatever this ID is up here. Okay. That is not the source plugin. This looks like it's trying to run. It's not running a, oh, wait, hold on. Oh no, it ran ours. It's trying to run another one. Or maybe it's just, did it run ours? I think it worked, and then I think ours worked. Yeah, the one that I wrote worked, but then it tried to run something else, maybe from Migrate Plus or Migrate Tools, and it doesn't have the right database name. I didn't. I didn't turn on any of those examples, I don't think. Oh, I did turn on migrate Drupal. Let's turn that one off. I think it's trying to do some sort of Drupal migration, and because I haven't set anything up, it's having a problem. So let's turn this one off for now. I'll uninstall this module. And let's run this again. Okay, so no error message. So if we wanted to roll this back just so we can do this, just so we can make sure the whole thing works, we can do EMR for migration rollback. And if you go check now, you'll see that that one taxonomy term is gone. And we could run it again and it should come back. All right, so there it is. So now let's add the other ones to the CSV file. And we're going to need I want to be able to nest these. So we're going to need another column in our CSV file. And I'll call this parent. It doesn't have, again, that is also the machine name in Drupal. It doesn't have to match. We'll match them up in the YAML configuration. And so in this column of the CSV file, we are going to put the machine name of the parent of this taxonomy term. Now, Drupal doesn't have a parent, so I'm just going to put a comma there and leave it blank because its parent is empty. All right, next, I'll have like Drupal : module. Again, these unique names in this case could be anything you want. So I'm just going to model the sort of hierarchy here because that's usually what I do, but it doesn't have to be done that way. And then module will be the name, or man, do I want mod? Yeah, let's just call it module. And then if we call it module, then wherever we print it out, we're going to have to do something like, we're going to have to do some work to theme that so that it says Drupal : module or something, right? But that could, I think that'll be nicer. I don't know. Could end up being a pain. If it is, though, it'll be easy. We'll just come back and change the CSV file, roll it back, and run it again. Okay, so now we need the parent. The parent in this case is Drupal. That's the machine, the unique ID over here. Next, we need Drupal theme. Parent is Drupal. I have distribution, though I don't know anybody uses those anymore. And okay, and then I have some that are not under Drupal, like development tools. So I'll say like dev tool. No parent on that case. And I have JavaScript library. Yeah, but there might be different things here. So let's do JS JavaScript. No parent. And then JS library, because there might be JS framework or JS something else. So JS build tool or something. I don't know. So this will be library. And its parent will be JS. And then I have another one that's just called other. Again, no parent on that. All right. So I'll save that. Now I got to go back because I don't have anything that matches up the parent. So we need to do that here. Now, again, the key in here is the Drupal machine name. So it's parent. We can't just do parent though, because if we did that, it would treat this like a string. And so it would want to write literally this word Drupal into that value. The parent is a entity reference to the parent term though, so that's not going to work. So what we are going to need to do is use a process plugin, because what we want to do is we want to look up what is the term that has this unique name? And so that lookup is what we need to do. So we will add a plugin called migration lookup, because this is a common thing that you have to do. There's a plugin for it, migration lookup, and you have to tell it what migration it comes from, because it's possible, like if we were linking to, for taxonomy term parents, this isn't true, but if you had some other kind of entities with entity references, it could be a different migration that you're linking to. In this case, it's the same one. So we have to give it the ID of this migration. And then source is what is the column in the CSV file. So in this case, that's parent. All right, so let's roll back. And we might need to clear caches because we did change the migration. So let's clear the caches to be sure. And then run this. So I got 8 items. Let's see what we have. Okay, so we do have the hierarchy. You can see here the distribution, module, and theme are underneath here. Now, one thing that's different is you'll notice that it's in alphabetical order. That is because taxonomy terms have a weight, and it uses the weight to list them here. And if the weight's all the same, then it uses alphabetical order. So all the weights ended up with a default weight of 0. I don't necessarily want them in this order, although, maybe it doesn't matter. But let's say I want it in the order that it was in the file, like Drupal first, then I had development tool and dev tool, and then JavaScript, and then other. So in that case, I would want to provide the weight. So we can do that. We'll need another column for it. The weight is just a number. So if Drupal is first, we could say Drupal is 0. And then, but the weight is going to be within a grouping. So the weight of the Drupal module could also be 0, because that would put it to the top, potentially, as long as the weights are bigger in that section. If I want theme to be under it, I could use 1. And then for distribution, I could use 2. And that should order them in that way. And then development tool, if I wanted to come after Drupal, then that would be 1, because it would come after the 0 up here. And then 2, library is a sub taxonomy term of JavaScript. So it could be 0 again. And then this one would need to be 3, because that would put it as Drupal, dev tool, JavaScript, other. And okay, so that's the weight. Then I got to map it over here. So in the process, weight is the Drupal key. And in this case, it's okay just to weight, because it's just going to take that number and stick it in there, which is all it is. So it doesn't need to do any lookups or anything. So I'll clear caches. I will roll this back. And then let's run it again. Whoops, problem. Okay, so this is a fun one. So when Drupal has to make up something because it doesn't like what you did, it puts in a lot of garbage, or it makes up when if Drupal tries to match an item and it doesn't exist, an entity reference, it will make one, and it makes one with this crazy name, this crazy long string of characters. So clearly it didn't like that I left the parent empty. The question is, what do I have to do if it's empty? I got to check my other example. Oh, I know what happened. It's because, it's not because I left it empty. It's because I put the weight in here. There should have been an extra comma there because the weight is after it. So then it was getting the 0. It was getting those other numbers in there and trying to treat those numbers as the parent. And of course, that number doesn't map to any unique ID. So that was the problem. Okay, so I got to go in here. My CSV file. This is the problem with editing a CSV file by hand. I created basically a invalid CSV file. Okay, so extra comma needs there, and here. Okay, if I roll this back now and rerun it, it should work. Okay, now it looks like it's supposed to. So they're in the order that I want them, and we don't have the random string issue. All right, so that one is basically done. So if there's any questions, remember you can, on either Twitch or YouTube, you can type in comments, and I can see them here in my software. And so if you have any questions, feel free to type in there. In the meantime, maybe we should try to do one of these Drupal to Drupal ones, because I really want to try to figure that out. And but it could take us a while because I've never done it before. All right, so let's do, trying to think what, so I do have the database. I created a sanitized database. This is actually this one called Legacy in here on my dev stack. This is a database that I copied from the real DrupalTutor website, and then I sanitized out all of the user data so that we could share it on this live stream, and we're not going to see people's real last 4 digits of their credit card number and their names and addresses and whatnot. So all that's been sanitized out with fake stuff. But I tried to put in fake. I sort of hand sanitized it with like fake but realistic data, so that we'll have some real data when we go to the theming step. So it's not just like a bunch of random characters. But maybe what we can do here is maybe user. That might be a good one to start with, because we can't really make a lot of the other content until we have the user. Although user's a little complex. Let me see if I can, there might be easier. Let me see if I can try one of the taxonomy terms from here. All right, I think we should use user, because then it avoids the whole issue of like the bundle. Like we don't have to worry about which vocabulary it's coming from or anything, or which content type. So let's see if we can get users pulled out of this and into the new system. Again, I don't know exactly how to do this, so we're both going to be learning at the same time here. So I do think I need this, the migrate Drupal. And we can, I'll turn on this UI one as well. I mean, maybe it'll help us. I don't know. I've actually never used that. I do think in this case that we're going to need, according to what I'm reading on this other thing, that we may need. Okay, list migrations. Okay, so this really just lets us run the migrations or something. This doesn't seem like I can. Yeah, that doesn't help me define them. So I still have to define them in code, I think. So there is another module. called Migrate Drupal 8. It looks like part of it has been brought into core. But then it specifically says the lone exception is for D8 to D8 migrations when you need the source and destination are not the same database, which is my situation. So I may need this. Let me just see if they've got a link to a blog post that isn't available. Great. All right, I'm going to look at the issue that's on core. So it looks like this has been integrated with core since 8.5, at least partially. Okay, so there's not a lot of info there. Let's go ahead and install this module and see if we can do this. Oh, I think I have to have the dev version or something because I'm on D9. Yeah. Okay. So the development version works on D9. And Drupal 8 to Drupal 8 migration. I think this is what I need. Even though technically this is a Drupal 9 to Drupal 9, I think this is what I'm going to need. Okay. So it says on this page, no, not this page, this one, that there is a source plugin called D8 Entity. So let's define a new migration. So I'll call it DT content user. So it needs an ID, DT content user, label, users. And let's see, we can go ahead and put the migration tag on it. That would make sense. This is launch content as well. And then we need source, process, and destination. So in this case, the source is going to be plugin D8 entity. Now, the question is, what are the keys that go with that? So we may have to investigate the module because it doesn't seem to have any documentation here. There apparently was does Wayback Machine have this or something? Because apparently there was a blog post. Oops. Okay. Sorry, I can make this a little bigger. I'm just skimming through this. So this definitely seems like it's designed for what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so currently Drupal 9 does have content entity plugin that helps with working with D8 or D9 entities, but it doesn't have an out-of-the-box connection to external database. Okay. Okay, there is a D9 module, a D9 release, so I don't think I need to do this copying thing that's talking about. Okay, now we have our source plugin. Okay, so we have to add the old Drupal site to our settings PHP. So this is mine's just called legacy. And on the DrupalTutor dev stack, it's just root for the username and password. Okay, so I've defined the database. Okay, so plugin is D8 entity. Okay, this one is, now they're doing files. That's kind of a hard one. I wish he had chosen a different example. Because like files have like more problems, right? Because you got to get the file and it's public and private and stuff. Does he have another example down here? No. Okay. So we'll just have to figure it out because I'm not sure like scheme public, that's clearly only for files. But I do think we're going to need this key because this says what the database name is. And that has to match up with Drupal 8 legacy right here. And we need the entity type, which is the source entity type, which is user. And okay, so now I can just process it like I would normally, theoretically. So process. So let me see. I think there is I think I've seen an example YAML file for migrating users. So I just might open it up because there's like quite a lot of keys. Okay, so here's an example on Drupal.org. Let me pull it over into this screen. And this suggests that you can just, it suggests you can get away with as little as this. There are other fields on there like last login time and a bunch of other things, created date. But let's see if we can get away with just this for now. The password hashes are all empty in this particular database, but that's okay. I cleared those out as part of the sanitizing. wait, hold on. So these match up to, the examples on Drupal.org are really annoying about this. So actually, I think I need, it's not P, this should be just pass, because it needs to be what it is in the source material, in the source. In this case, the database, that column is pass. So I think it should just be pass. And then the destination is plugin entity user. Just double check, I think. Yeah. And this MD5 passwords, we shouldn't need that. And we don't need that default bundle thing because users don't have bundles. So theoretically, this is enough. We can run drush CR. We can run drush MS, which is status. Oh, that's interesting. There's a bunch in here that I didn't create at all. Oh, now that's interesting. It does see them because look, it says that there's 1,530, which is probably right. I mean, we can double check, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be right. Yep, 1,530. Okay, so that's promising. Let's see if it works. If this works, it's even easier than I thought it was going to be. Nope, not working. Something's... Actually, it is working. It looks like there is a couple... Oh, you know what? It's the first two. The first two users didn't work because they're user 0 and user 1, which with the users with UID 0 and 1, those already exist in the system. And so those cannot come over. I wonder if there's a way to tell it, like only do the ones 2 and up. It's like I need a filter. I mean, you could do it with a process. I'm going to look that up here in a minute, but let's just see what happened. Let's go to my people. And yeah, I have a lot of user accounts. And when I sanitized them, I just changed everybody's email addresses so that they were like DT web user and then whatever their user ID was. So this did work. Okay, so let's try to bring in some of this other data. I think almost all my users should be active. I don't think I have any blocked users for any reason. And we are bringing over the status. That was one of the ones. But let's try to bring over the created and last access on some of this other information. So we need to know what those are called. Machine name. So let's look in here. I think it's in user field data. So let's try to bring some of these things over. So we'll bring over time zone, created, change, access, login. So it should just be a matter of adding these. They should match up from the one database to the other. So time zone, created, changed, login, which is the last login time, access, which I think is the last time they loaded a page on the website, unless they hit some endpoint. And then we also have, there is a field name here, which, whoops, those are real names. Some of them. Oh, wait. Some of those are real names. So maybe we'll hold off on that one. I thought I'd seen most of them are not, but like 1 out of 10 of those are like real names. I must have made a mistake sanitizing that. Okay. So yeah, let's try to roll this back and see if that works as it is. Oh, well, let me see. Yeah, whoops, that's not the one I wanted to roll back, but okay. And then we'll run it again. And I should just check. I forgot to stop. I think let's roll it back. Oh, okay. So here's the thing. So I killed it because I think I forgot to clear caches. And so I don't think it picked up my changes. So, okay, I killed it. And now you see that if I try to roll it back, it doesn't work because the status is wrong. So this is where I can drush MRS reset status on this one. Then I can roll it back. And then I can clear caches and run it again. Okay, those first two had an error for the same reason. All right, let's load it now. Okay, so that looks like it worked. These are real times from when these users logged in. I don't know any that we can probably look in the database if we want to check their time zones, but I expect their time zones came over as well. There is actually another, I think for roles, there's like another plugin you have to use to get their roles because that's in a different table. I actually don't need the roles because I don't use roles for any particular users other than the admin user. Everybody who logs into the site has permissions based on their memberships in courses. So I'm not going to bother migrating in any roles. Everybody's just a regular user. The one thing I would like to see is if I can avoid that error message. So, and I want to take this opportunity to point out this series of blog posts, which is really great. If you just search for like 31 days of migrations, this is, every time I have to do migrations, I pull this up because he's got loads of examples of like, if you go through them step by step, you will learn how to use the Drupal migration system. But you know, you can also go to the specific things that you need here as well. Like, oh, I've got JSON files, I've got XML files that, you know, you can go through all this. The thing is, I wanted to see if there was a way, like in using process plugins, I think there's a way you can tell it like, there can be a process plugin to tell it like, stop, don't do this one. But I can't remember what it is. So I just wanted to see if he mentions it in here. Because if I learned it if I know it, I probably learned it from here. So let me I want to skim through a couple of these real quick. Okay, I don't see anything there. Oh, he's got to think about migrating users. So let's just see. Yeah, there's nothing here. I'm gonna have to look for it later. Like maybe I'll just do a quick Google here, but see if I can quickly find it. Yeah, hold on. It's skip on empty or something. Hold on, let's see. Skip on empty is a process plugin. See if the current input value is empty. So that's good, but I don't want to skip on empty. I want to skip on some other logic. Okay, I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But in the meantime, it's working. So I don't want to bog down too much in that. Okay, so we have the way to, now we have a way to migrate from Drupal, the old Drupal database, and we have a way to migrate from CSV files. So let's look at the TSD and let's migrate into this blog. So because we needed users before that, because even though the user is always going to be, I could have just like set it to 1 because I think I'm the author of all those blog posts. When that's user ID 1 on the site, it's going to want to have that user ID for the author there. And so that's why I wanted to do users first. So let's do DT content node blog.yaml. This will have an ID, DT content node blog. Label is blog post. We'll use the same migration tags for launch content. And then we need the source in this case. Let's go back. We're going to need the same stuff here because it's a DA entity from the legacy. The entity type is node. But how do I tell it I only want... How do I tell it? Oh, wait, let's go back. Where was that? So he has this like scheme public. So I mean, can I just put like bundle in there? I guess let me look at the code. So this is migrate Drupal 8. So the plugin for this is down in here. It's going to be, oh, hold on. There's actually there's content entity, but then there's node. Oh, node is deprecated. Use content entity instead. Okay. So if we go to content entity, there should be some way to specify the bundle. Yeah, it looks like bundle is an available, possibly an available key here. I don't know where. I feel like it should be defining that somewhere, but maybe not. I guess maybe you don't actually have to declare it. You can just use it. But clearly they're pulling bundle in multiple places. So I think that if I put bundle blog, which is, let me make sure that's the right thing. Okay, yep, there it is. All right, and then we need, so hopefully that works. And then we need process. We need to map up the fields. So there'll be a title that'll go to title. And then how is the data? I think that this might just have a body field, like the standard. So like if I look at node body, actually I'll just look at it on my, in the other window on the actual DrupalTutor site. It'll be faster. Oh, no, I actually have a paragraph. Okay, so blogs have a paragraph called in a field called field paragraphs, which maps up to what I want it already to be. That means, oh, how do I migrate paragraphs? I don't think I've had to do that before. Let's see if anybody's got an example here. We may have to migrate the paragraphs first, is what I would guess. Okay, so it looks like we do have to migrate the paragraphs first. So okay, so I think our paragraph it's called text. Oops. And it has a title and text. So this is the closest. On the old site, it's called HTML. So I think we need to migrate HTML. I do have image ones, but I don't think that blog ever used them. So I think we can do yeah, actually, yeah, I think we can do this as so TT content, paragraphs, text, label. I mean, theoretically, this would have also pull over paragraphs from pages and stuff, but there aren't that many. So I don't know that we need to filter them out. If there's some other paragraphs in the system, could be fine. Okay, let's get the tags. And then the source. I think we'll follow this. It's going to be paragraph. And the bundle over there, let me make sure I got the right machine name. I believe that it is HTML. Yep. There's also an image one, but I don't think it's used in blogs, so we'll skip it for now. Process. So over on the other site, HTML has field HTML, which is the long formatted text. And it needs to go into field, the equivalent over here, which I think we'll confirm here is field text. So we need field text. Now this has a long format. It has two values. It has the value and the format, because it could be HTML, or I use Markdown a lot on the other one. That could be a problem we run into here, because I don't think I have those defined over here, but let's try it, see what happens. So I think it should be like field text value. That's on this Drupal site, and that's coming from field HTML value, and field text format is coming from field HTML format. The title is left empty because I didn't have titles on the other one. So destination, plugin. Now this is a different one because and this is where I'm not entirely sure if this is going to work right, but we'll try it. According to a blog post I have over here, we should use entity reference revisions paragraphs, which is a little bit weird because I'm migrating the paragraph, but that's what it says to do. So let's try it. And the default bundle, this we'll just confirm here. It is a text paragraph. All right. So So theoretically, if I not optimistic about this, but let's try it. Hey, some paragraphs came through. Okay, so I think actually this error seems to be coming from something else. One of those, there's some other block things that are coming from somewhere. I don't know what that's coming from, but it looks like this actually worked. So let's move on because we're not going to be able to see those paragraphs. There's not any way to browse them. But now we can go to our, now I think we can just do the, now we can just use migration lookup here. Okay, so this is field paragraphs. It's plugin, because now we're looking up the paragraph from the last thing we just did, migration lookup. The migration is the other one. And the source. This is where I'm not sure. Hold on, there's something different here. I'm missing something. Okay, so according to this blog post, because there's multiple paragraphs, that's one thing I haven't, there could be multiple paragraphs at least. I have to account for that. So we have to use plugin iterator source, and this is where I don't know, elements. And it's not clear if that's just like a hard-coded thing you're supposed to use or what for this kind of plugin. I'm just going to use it and see what happens because it doesn't explain where that came from, or at least maybe I just didn't see it. And then for the iterator plugin, you can have like a sub process for each item that you're iterating over. So there's process underneath it. And this is where I would set the individual values. So it suggests that for entity reference revisions, I just need to do it like this. I'm hoping that just copying this is correct, but I'm not 100% sure. Migration, this is where I would use this thing. And it says to use element ID. Again, I'm just going to copy it. This is more complicated because a paragraph is actually an entity reference revision. So it's links to not just an entity, it's linking to a specific revision of that entity. And it says that you have to, this plugin destination type requires that we have these other temporary IDs, target ID, etc. So what this is doing, all right, so what this is going to do, the extract plugin, this must return an array of some kind. And this is pulling the first item out of the array. So is the target ID, and then the target revision ID is apparently the second item in that array. That's the way this data is structured. And this at syntax, this is something you can use in other places in migrations when you're you're chaining. In this case, we're chaining these processes together. So we're getting these temporary IDs. Then with the value that came back from the temporary IDs, we're running the extract plugin on it and getting index 0 and storing that as target ID. Temporary IDs is actually not, in this case, it's likely not a value that needs to be stored, but it's called temporary because it's just going to run. It will probably be written to the entity, but since it doesn't exist real, when you save, it just goes away. So it's just something to hold that value so that we can then run these second processes on it to extract the specific values. Okay, hopefully that works. Again, that's a lot of copying. I've never done this before. Okay, so destination should be just standard. So it's plugin, entity, node, default bundle. Default bundle or default bundle type? Default bundle is blog. Okay, let's clear caches. First, let's look at the status. So MS, migration status. What does it tell me about blog? Oh, 88. That's probably about right for the number of blog posts. I used to do like a weekly one that linked out to other tutorials and things that were came out that week. I now just tweet that out on social media stuff. So I don't have a blog post, but that seems like a good number. It's definitely not all the nodes. So let's try it. MIM. Oh, that did not work. The iterator plugin does not exist. Okay. So, all right, so that's just too much copying on my part. So, but I think we're actually close. Let's just see if I can get there quickly. I know we're about at 90 minutes now, so trying to remember if you have multiple values. But it's a migration lookup with multiple values. Just see if I have an example of that somewhere. Okay, interesting. Like everybody says to use iterator. All the examples I find use iterator, but maybe it was removed. Or maybe I spelled it wrong. Or maybe it comes from another module that I don't have. Let me see what modules this suggested installing. Oh, wait, there's a change record. So renamed migrate iterate process to sub plugin to sub process. Okay, I guess that makes sense because you're going to process on each one. So let's change this to sub process and see if it works. Okay, I gotta reset it because it oops, because it crashed last time. Oh, MRS for the reset the status. Okay, something happened. Didn't crash. Do I have any blog post? Yeah, there's something here. Oh, I didn't map the user ID. I should do that. But I don't have any content. Okay. So the paragraphs did not come through. All right, I might have to do some lookup. I'll do some research over the week. Let's fix the user. I know how to fix that one. So we just need to UID should be plugin migration lookup migration. It's the user. Oh, actually, that may not work because I didn't migrate user one because it failed because user one already exists. So we can do another thing. Since in this case, they're all going to be user one as the author. There is like, I can't remember. I think it's default value. Let me see. Was listed. This is all the plugins. So is there one? I think there's one called default value. Yeah, there is. So let's just see if I can do that to make them all author of user ID 1. Re-import. Is it default value? Default value? Maybe. Oh, you know what? I didn't clear caches. That could be the problem. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so it did link them to the correct user. So I will do a little bit more research to figure out how to get those. I think the paragraphs came in. I think they are just not linked to these blog posts correctly. I think it's the second migration that failed. Okay, so one last question before we... Oh, it didn't fit on the screen. Oh, there we go. So how far back do migrations go in the Drupal releases? What's the oldest version? I know you can migrate from Drupal 6. I think that's probably the oldest that you can do because the migration wasn't developed until, or at least not in core, until Drupal 8. So it was mainly for people coming from Drupal 6 and 7 because when Drupal 8 came out, you couldn't, that's when Drupal 6 went end of life. And so they went back to Drupal 6. All right. So I think that's a good stopping point. I'll figure out how to migrate paragraphs correctly. And we'll do that and continue on pulling in some of this content